Oh man, that was a hard night of drinking. I need to record today, and with a hangover nonetheless. Let's see. Man, it looks like Jeremy's busy. Marty is still on a secret mission in the Bermuda Triangle. Raoul broke open a barrel of 10-year aged whiskey. David is on his seventh pool game tonight, and Jer is teaching a group of theater students de-escalating tactics during improv night. Looks like I'll be doing this on my own. Hey, who's at the door?
Knock, knock, knock. Can I borrow a cup of brown sugar?
Oh, it's Tuari Dawson from the Invisible Sensei Podcast.
Wow.
Hey!
Hey. Hooray for me.
Hooray! Welcome to Karate Without Belts, sir.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me, man. I'm a big fan. It's kind of one of those cliche things where long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess that's how this is working. I wish we could do a more of a call-in show. Because I've seen people try to do that on like YouTube or like streaming stuff, but it just doesn't work the same as I guess old radio used to.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing which is really cool, the thing which is very much like old style radio is you have those smooth, dulcet tones, which makes people want to tune in, man. If I could ring in live, I would ring in live. I would totally bomb your podcast, man.
Well, that depends if we ever do a streaming version of. I would like at some point to get all the karate podcast people together and we could do possibly on a monthly basis something like that. Or we
man, I'm keen.
Do a
so sign me up. Sign me up.
So, this is us coming in the I guess first official week of February in 2021. Thank God we all survived.
Mm-hmm.
Coming in with Invisible Sensei Tuari Dawson. This is I guess would mark the second crossover we've had with another podcast.
Yeah. But I mean, this one, I mean, your first one was successful. We don't know where this is going, man. This may never be broadcast. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Gonna
get out of the podcasting industry and get into more of the cheese making industry because that's really where the passion lies. So anyway, sir, how's your week been? How are things down? I always want to say it's down under, but that's more of an Australian thing, less of a New Zealand thing.
Well, you can be down, but you don't have to be under. A little mental health quip there.
There you go.
Well, it's been a good week, man. Actually, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. I know kind of when we had a bit of a chat a couple of weeks ago, it was really good to connect, and it's given me an opportunity to kind of really drill down on listening to a lot of the back catalogue of KWOB or
KWOB.
KWOB.
I want to say that wasn't what we kind of used for it, but I like it more than what we've used, so I'm probably going to integrate that. And I want to shout you out really quickly here because I'm really bad at listening to like other people's stuff because I've been trying to tune out more things, but I started putting on your stuff, and your interview with Pat Miguel, which was really good, was different from this stuff I had heard from other places with him. I really appreciated that. But also, I was just listening. You're one of the few people I think who can actually hold a podcast solo, and I don't mean that in any sort of like condescending way or anything like that. It's more that, as I always like to tell people, is like I can't do a podcast solo. It sounds bad. I need people to bounce off and stuff like that, and I'm not that interesting. But you just come at it, you just with such a genuine voice and such you just sitting down talking, and just it's so easy to listen to. The points come across so relatably, and I was just like, wow, how have I not heard of this sooner? So
Well, man, hey, thank you. I take that as a massive compliment coming from you, because I really enjoy your content too, and I enjoy just kind of the earnestness and also the relaxed manner in which you approach a lot of these subjects. And for me, I guess the idea of doing a podcast and that people listen to it is kind of crazy to me. But it's really literally is me usually sitting with a cup of tea or a coffee or some kind of cool beverage if it's hot, and just getting some thoughts out. My podcast started really because I guess there were things that I thought, and I just wanted some way to take my inner voice and make it my external voice. Because I think sometimes when we keep things in, when we keep thoughts to ourselves, it's this kind of circular thing where they just kind of circle round and round and round in our head. And once you get them out, especially like doing this, having a conversation with you, you can put it out, you can pull it apart, you can look at it, you can kind of leave the parts you want, and then you might get a fresh perspective on things. So thanks for that, man. That means that actually I take it as a huge compliment coming from you. And in terms of holding a podcast by myself, well, I am extremely self-centered. So,
well, and that's not to say that at all, but it's more. Here's the difference. I'm the jerk who's like, yeah, I feel we need to have take up at least an hour of people's time. Well, you're like, yeah, I'll get it done in like 20 minutes. Yeah, that's it. This is actually probably more successful because of that. So
yeah, but I mean, it's the difference. It's the difference between. I mean, what I like about your format is that you get an opportunity to really kind of just relax and let the conversation go where you want to go. I mean, a lot of times my podcast, I'm sitting in my car with my microphone up and then just musing on stuff, and which is cool. But I know for me, like from being on this side of my voice, I get sick of listening to my voice. So it's cool to have an opportunity to come on one of my favorite podcasts, actually, to be on Boojin or on YouTube for that matter. So thanks for having me, man.
thank you, sir. Thank you. And yeah, I guess we can kind of low key shout out our affiliation with Bujin. So
Yes.
I'm always trying to be very low key about it and
Yeah.
just build like, what is this Bujin thing?
Yeah.
And not really explain it, just leave a link
Mm.
and that's that. It's done
Wow.
nothing really incendiary, we
Mm.
promise. So
Can we give a shout out to our mutual friend Josh Simmers on the Okinawan Karate podcast as well?
yes, we are the titans of karate podcasting, the three of us.
The three of us, yeah, we stride this world, this karate podcast world like gods.
I'm just thinking of
What does that make him? What does that make him?
I guess if we were going to if we're gonna go old school with this, and if you would be like Atlas or whoever this or Zeus, and I would be Atlas because I'm holding up the sky, and then I guess Josh would be Poseidon.
Well, did you say Poseidon or did you say beside him?
Poseidon.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Josh, the thing about Josh Simmons' podcast is Okinawan Karate Podcast is that he said some pretty incendiary things about you and me.
Yeah.
You know,
I guess
he complains about you all the time to me. And likewise, I guess.
Just because we happen to be probably not 10 miles apart actually at this point.
Yeah.
Technically have not been on the floor together yet. But
yeah.
Let's start crap with other people's podcasts. They're on somebody else's podcast.
Beef.
Yeah.
Let's start beef, man. Let's just start a beef with everyone else. I mean, that Josh Simmers, what has he got that I don't? Oh, well, a grasp of English probably.
Is that more of the British part of New Zealand coming out? Is that more of the Maori part of British
but he doesn't. He doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I don't know. That was a faux pas that I can't take back now. It's there. There's really no cool way to come back from.
And especially I can't fix it in editing.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, man. Now we're starting.
I had a feeling that we'd get here with you on this podcast. Great. That's wonderful. We were talking the other day and we were kind of having a yak about different stuff. And one thing that came up was style and whether or not it's really going to be around in a couple years. And I think we can go about this in a couple different ways. But I guess I can pose the question kind of out the boat is do you think style is going to be around in 100 years?
I mean, when you put that question out there, it's actually been kind of on my mind all morning, and since we discussed it, it's a very interesting question, because I know we were talking off here before we started. Maybe 100 years ago there wasn't styles to begin with. So styles, in regards to the way that we think of style, is only a fairly new thing. So to be honest with you, man, well, gosh, this is going to probably get a little bit contentious. I don't have a problem with people who have a spiritual belief. I do have a problem with religion. When religion becomes more important than what people believe in, or in this case, when the style becomes more important than what you're practicing. It's when the messenger gets mistaken for the message. And I mean, you think about Wester doing in the same dojo, say, and let's say that we're doing a particular kata or a particular style, shorin or goju or wechi, whatever it is. Within that dojo, you're going to train with a lot of different senior sensei, and each one of them is going to have their own take on different things across the styles. So you're trying to decide, okay, is my thumb tucked this way, then my fingers point this way, is my stance this is my stance that. And you could argue that each of those instructors within that style have their own style, which, to make it even more confusing, which transcends style.
I mean, that's not confused. I don't think that's as confusing. It can get like a little out there, but no, that's I believe completely accurate, because every dojo I've ever been a part of, any school I've ever been a part of, is exactly that way. Unless you have people really, really like hammered into exactly the way, like a senior sensei or somebody at the top is just hammered everybody down to the point where everyone looks exactly the same. Which I don't know what fictional dojo that is, or what.
Is it fictional though? Is it fictional? I certainly have visited dojo and actually been members of particular dojo that have almost exactly that.
In what way though? Like, is in terms of how the forms look, in terms of how the training is, in terms of how the school's organized.
Okay, well, let's so not let cats out of bags and to bag a particular style or a particular organization.
Right.
What I can say is that I was for a long time part of an organization, and the style of teaching was we must have, I will call them Sensei, let's
X.
say Sensei X.
Yeah.
So Sensei X does it this way. So we must all emulate Sensei X, not try to discover karate for ourselves and how we interpret it in terms of our body and our outlook, our culture, our sensibilities, our common sense. What we have to do is we have to spend our time trying to fit into this really specific model. An example of that is shikodachi. We have to have a perfectly parallel to the ground shikodachi. Now I'm 6'4", and I know some people are super flexible, but I'm not. So the idea of having a perfectly parallel shikodachi and emulating someone, a wonderful Okinawan practitioner in Senior Sensei, who is about 5'5", trying to emulate his style of karate and his take on karate is almost a physical impossibility for me. But what happens is when you spend your time going, we must emulate, you miss the bigger picture. It's that whole Bruce Lee finger pointing away to the moon metaphor. We focus on the people who are trying to teach us these things and trying to, instead of emulating, we're trying to impersonate. And that's dangerous because it leads to comparison. And it's like Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you're going to have one depressed as shit fish. You know what I mean? And I don't think that Einstein used the word shit, but you get where I'm going with that.
No, exactly. And I think because I had almost the opposite problem in terms of people I was training with never knowing what was right, but like always like never knowing which way's up, and always like waiting for the next update or whatever on just fairly basic stuff. And what was frustrating about that is that was this a ploy by the people up top to keep people confused, to keep people paying money, to keep membership, keep the upper people from thinking they've achieved anything. I mean, they're two different points, but they come back to the same thing. Where
I think they perfectly relate to one another. The idea that you have people, you've got to keep people. A lot of times, I think there's this kind of, for certain people and certain personalities, like to maintain a certain level of mystique about themselves and their style. And I think that, like, for instance, the whole thing about Kyushu. Now, for me with Kyushu, I believe in pressure points, but I believe also there's no mystery to them. It could be a contentious thing to say. I think that, talking about the Okinawan Karate podcast, Sensei Jason Perry was talking to Josh, and he was talking about his father's view that his father's he's done a biography of his father. Basically what happens is it's called old man's karate.
Right.
Now what happens is you've got
low key, very low key.
But the thing is but in terms of Kyushu, in terms of doing pressure points, people want to go from, in today's mentality, they don't want to go through blood, sweat and tears. They want to spend 20, 30 years. They just want to jump to the part where you've created and really refined the style. And I think what happens is that if you can own, it's like that song, if you own the information, you can change it all you want and you can charge for it. I'm a huge believer in that we have to take responsibility. There's a certain point when our karate is fully formed. I don't mean that in the sense that we can't learn anymore. We're always learning. But you have to take a look at what you're doing and say, am I in some kind of dysfunctional daddy pat me on the head and tell me I'm pretty kind of relationship? Or am I...
Yes.
Am I...
Oh my God, Tua, where have you been all my life?
Yeah.
I've used this exact words in my head, but it's never been articulated until now.
It's this weird thing of that with that mentality too, you allow people to treat you like shit. Sometimes you can have these people who are, in the beginning, people looking for father figures and having a certain level of dysfunction themselves, and being these wonderful martial artists, these incredible fighters and whatever else you want to label them, but missing an essential cog when it comes to actually their humanity. And then you've got them teaching, being in charge of these humongous organizations, traveling all over the world, teaching all these people and influencing a lot of people, especially young people. And what they do is, instead of saying, hey, this is the path towards your own, to realizing where you want to go and what you want to do, and we want to support your path until it becomes, you're on a path, I own the path, and you don't walk any further than me. And if you try and get ahead of me, I'm going to embarrass you, humiliate you, and ostracize you and make you stand at the back of the class, stand in the corner with a dunce cap on. So for me, when we talk of styles, our actual development is stifled when we have those sort of people and we allow ourselves. I mean, you wouldn't put up with that in a relationship. Why would you put up with that in a teacher?
Well, and it's always a relationship that you've got, right? Because it's always the student's relationship with the teacher's relationship with the student. Like that's, or the student's relationship with like the art as at large, other students within the classroom. We can't get away from. There's no other form of the martial arts community other than that. It's impossible. You can't. It can be close to very close to family, but ultimately you have those figures, and if it's not in terms of allowing people to grow, right? So I feel we both see the same. We've both seen the same, because that I've had those exact experiences, and every time it's heartbreaking to see other people. You have to go through that experience in order to come out the other side and just be like, all right, I have to have the kind of wisdom to not, that life experience to not do that anymore. But then you see other people, younger or less experienced than you, have to go through that.
Well, it's this thing too. I mean, and that's where the responsibility comes in. The 12-step programs. When people are doing 12-step programs and for various addictions and so on. One of the first things, the courage to accept the things I cannot change. Well, the thing is that I would rather, in terms of karate, we change the things we cannot accept, and that's where the courage comes in. I mean, for me, I think style is quite amazing. Like I do the 12 standard Goju-ryu kata, but I also, there's some Kihon kata, some Pinan kata. I've picked up a couple of kata from Ryu-ryu. I've had Shitoru Sensei and Goju Kai Sensei teach me Ryu-ryu kata. I love, and then there's Kobudo and all the rest of that. But the thing is that I don't learn these extra kata so I can make an extra buck or kind of aggrandize myself in a way where I'm going, right, I'm teaching you not just one style but many. It's because I particularly like this, particularly Anan. Anan is a kata that I've always loved to watch, and when I had an opportunity to learn it, I'm going, yeah, but I'm not a Ryu practitioner. I know Pinan Shodan, but it doesn't make me a Shodan, a Shotokan, or Shitoru practitioner. But
I can't think I've ever seen Anan.
It's a lovely kata.
Yeah.
Anan is a beautiful kata. I love it. But I could be mispronouncing it too. But the point being is that we have style biases ourselves. I mean, Shoden now I'm going to talk about the Naha stuff because that's what I know best. For me, Naha people are shorter limbs, they're stronger, they're a little more heavy set and things like that. I'm going, and Shoden is a more springy, more relaxed whipping style. See, that's the thing is when we have that perspective, then we kind of fit these molds. We go, okay, because I'm a big guy, so I can't have springy, snappy technique. I must have these circles because that's what we do. Those sort of limitations are the things which strengthen and underscore those style biases, I think.
Right. And I think those style biases even, which is weird because they've only really been entrenched for maybe 70, 80 years at this point in all reality. I thought about this today and it popped in my head. Like 10 years ago, I was at a meeting with a bunch of people who I trained with, and one of the kind of senior guys was like, I'm going to kind of do an impression of his voice, but it's just kind of funny because he's from New York. Why do we do Sakagawa kata, and our Sakagawa katas don't look like anybody else's Sakagawa katas? And the guy from Texas piped up, cause it's good advertising. And the senior guy was like, that's exactly right. Because just that idea that we know Sakagawa, right? There's somebody we know Sakagawa. So even though these katas don't look like anybody else's Sakagawa kata, we're going to use that name to kind of further ourselves and legitimize ourselves through that. So I think even with like the use of Shorinryu, the use of Shinahate, the use of Shorite, the use of Goju-ryu, the use of Uechi-ryu, these are things to help be easier to identify stuff. But like, and I think the difference between you and me is that most of my training has been actually around more Shorin stuff, more Shurite stuff. But I've never, ever called it that because it's always been Okinawa or Ryukyu Kempo.
Yeah.
But you kind of pull the label off and it looks like Shorin-ryu. So,
but the thing is with that though, bro, it's also too when you get together with other practitioners.
Right.
It's kind of like, that whole metaphor of, to use another metaphor, when you go to a party or you're at a social gathering and people walk up to you and they don't say, who are you? They say, what do you do? So the first thing is, what's your lineage? And that will determine how I speak to you. that will determine whether I am greater or lesser than you, whether you are a tiger or you're a chicken in my eyes. So, that's the same thing with style. People go, what's your lineage? And I'm going, you know what? I've had people talk about my, not question my karate, but, kind of assume certain things about my karate, where I learned it, how I learned it, and what I do. And they want to talk lineage. And I'm like, why don't you watch my karate and then you tell me what my lineage is? Because I think those kind of conversations also add to these biases, and
Right.
it also underscores style. And now, what you're talking about with Sakugawa, the idea that, here's an interesting one, like Oro Sensei, who was I never trained with him. I never practiced his style, but in terms of my travels around the world, I've met lots of people who have stories about their training with Oro Sensei, and I'm not about to bag them for that. But sometimes I think people don't create these stories, but perhaps they have a perception about their relationship to a particular instructor, and over the years they deliberately distort their perception of that relationship to aggrandize themselves. Like, I was the last student. I learned a particular kata. I learned the only kata. I learned the true way. He taught me this, and you see that a lot in karate history. And I think what happens is that you've got to keep it in perspective. Going to a seminar with a sensei is not the same as spending 20 years training with them. And I think your karate should speak for itself, man. Your karate should speak for itself.
And this brings us to today, because, if you think of like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? You went to the school near you, you trained with whoever that person was. That's all you had. Now, we have more information than we know what to do with. And from a personal perspective, I think a lot of people, it's just more information than we know what to do with. 30 years ago, it would have been like buying all the black belt magazines and all the books in the catalog. Right
on.
And it's not exactly different from that. We just have more audio visual stuff to work with, but knowing what to do with any of that, it becomes where I think where style's going, where I think you're going to have the death of style is going to happen. Is it's not going to happen in terms of, Goju fell apart, or Shorinryu fell apart, or Uechi fell apart, or Ishinryu fell apart. I don't think that's going to happen. What I think is going to happen is you're going to get more and more and more and more axiomization. You're just going to have people being, I trained with this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, and I am Shorinryu, Shorin Kai, Shorin Kan, Shalando, Arnis, Eskrima, Filipino, Jiu-Jitsu, Kai, Aiki, Do, Jutsu, Ren, Do. And you're going to get all of those signifiers just tacked onto there, because you have one person who's pursuing all that, and they're going to build a style around themselves. And regardless if they have any students or not, you're going to get that. Now, I'm not saying that's what you or me or anybody else does.
Oh, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. It's right after this podcast. I'm just going to start
announcing it.
Tuari Dawson. It's going to be a thing, man. Not going to, and your grades are going to depend upon the size of your credit card. Let's be honest. But to that, bro, what you were saying, I really agree with that. I think that something to bear in mind is a saying in Māori, in our language, and it goes, toi tu te whenua, whatu ngarongaru I te tangata. So that means that the land remains, although the people may go. And I think that that's relevant when it comes to karate. I think that I've kind of moved away from, quite by accident, labeling myself. I mean, obviously the style that I practice is Okinawan Goju-ryu, but I think of late, I've started to just refer to myself as a karate practitioner, because I think what will happen is the title come and the title go out, but what will be left is karate. And I'm hoping that the style, the idea that style will kind of fall by the wayside, because I think that it's where that's the problem is, like you were talking about, organizations do fall apart and they fractionate and all these sort of things.
Oh God.
Kind of, rather than create this kind of personal take on what they're doing, they spend their time looking left and right and saying what they do is wrong and what they do is wrong, and I'm the real teacher. I trained for longer, and yes, you trained for longer, but I was more intensively trained. Now what happens is these students and the style does not progress. What it does is it stays completely static. Now that's not to say, and what happens is people get stuck into, well, my sensei taught me to do a kata in this way, and this is the only way to do it. I mean, to be honest, in terms of my personal training, if Miyagi Sensei came back, Higuana Sensei came back, Kandro Higuana Sensei came back, I mean, he'd probably have a conniption at the way that I do Sanshin. But to be honest, after 40 years of doing karate, I there were just things which kind of make sense to me. And that's not stuff maybe that's not what I teach people, but from my own training, and that's the thing, our own training is really important. I think that once you drop the idea that you have to wave a banner and saying, this is me and this is the style that I do and this is my lineage and this is who taught me and this is who my teacher's teacher was and I come from this dojo, and just practice your karate and enjoy it, you're going to be a whole lot more happier as a person and have a whole lot more longevity as a practitioner.
I agree with, like, this is Socrates and Plato. I agree exactly with everything you said. I think the issue is going to be where people want to go in terms of learning more, in terms of, like, if they've been, like, for example, people who've been training one place for a while and they want to be under an umbrella because they feel that's safer, or that's, where they can have more connections and stuff like that. But I feel that where that's going to more go in the future is dojos decentralizing and becoming more axiomatic. But this is not necessarily a bad thing, because they don't have to be a part of a large organization to pay a bunch of dues up to, essentially the mafia style of kicking up, rather than just, okay, we're all friends. We can all meet up and nobody interferes with each other, and we don't go into each other's schools and tell each other what to do. We can bounce off each other's experience and put things together the way we want them to, rank notwithstanding, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, the thing is I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who hasn't been part of an organization in, oh my gosh, 15, 17 years. I have not been affiliated to anyone in particular. What I decided to do at a certain point, I mean, you were talking before about the idea of affiliating with people. I went through a couple of years ago, this period of going, oh my gosh, I think I should affiliate to someone. I think I should find someone, and I should just kind of sit under their veranda, so to speak. And and there were some really nice people who said, oh, come and join us, do this and that. But what I did is I just decided to take ownership of my karate and take ownership of my development and trust myself and try to create respectful relationships with people who are way senior to me. And I don't mean that in any kind of kiss-ass way, but respectful, meaningful relationships to have a group of people that I seek their advice. But at the end of the day, I have to also be able to look in the mirror and say, what's really going on here? And I think a lot of times we are so keen to, we have this thing in martial arts where we want Mr. Miyagi / Yoda / Master Splinter. We want that person,
and Mickey. We can't discount Mickey.
Yeah, Mickey. Yeah. And all of these things where we want that person to tell us. I mean, I know, especially for me, massive daddy issues, massive issues of abandonment. So it was easy for me to gravitate and put people on these unrealistic pedestals of respect. And that was in a convenient way of not stepping to the fore myself. That was a convenient way of me not taking responsibility for myself. And being frightened to do that and not feeling worthy and allowing that to feed the fires of my own lack of self-esteem. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing half the time. I for me as a practitioner, I just see so many people like yourself. Like there's so many people that I see that are that like there is just a torrent of information out there, right? But the art is in going, what feeds me?
Yeah.
What entertains me? What am I watching that entertains me? What am I doing that feeds me? Listening to your podcast is one of the things that feeds me. When you've put stuff on your channel where you're actually practicing karate, I'm going, this is a guy who's just practicing karate. And I love the idea of karate without belts, in the sense that it's not that you don't have them, but it's the idea of, for me, of getting to the basics. And the basics is just loving your karate, loving your practice, and then deriving something other than punching and kicking from it.
Well, and that's mainly what you have to strip away a lot of stuff before you actually get down to the grassroots of it. And I hate to go back into what we were talking about the last 2 times of the podcast, like Karate Kid, because God, all the issues there.
I love karate.
A lot of people do, but I've expressed enough opinions on this franchise, on this podcast.
Express some more, man. Express some more. Go for it. I'm
no,
king.
but my thing is it's karate's a lot simpler than I think a lot of people make it out to be. And a lot of it is not about what it is, but it's about it's about the practice itself. That sounds really a lot more like, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. But it's more like you just have to shut up and get to training. And then once you actually get into the training, all of the complications and stuff like that kind of go away, because you're just training. You're doing the sparring, you're doing your heavy work, you're doing your soft work, you're doing your push hands, you're doing your bogu, you're doing your kobudo, you're doing your yakusoku, you're doing your practical self-defense. It's all gonna flow in together. But I've seen people make it way too complicated, and that's where we're coming to style again, where, well, this style is gonna have this, and this style is gonna have that, and this style is gonna have this, and we have to mix it all together. Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, it goes into the other side of all of this, where people are going to be cherry picking everything to try to make a mishmash, when in reality, all they need to do is just look at their training a little harder and but a lot more simply. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense, man. I totally agree. I'm right, man. I think you put it really beautifully. I just kind of think that it's like getting out of how your karate looks, how a kata looks, and focusing on how it feels. Like if you spend, a dojo and it has a lot of mirrors, people stand there, and I know I stood there and I want to have my hand in a particular position. I want to make my stances good. And I like it when my gi pops and all the rest of that. But what I do is I'm getting out of how I feel and starting to get into how I look, which is understandable. And like you say, I think it comes down to that it's not as complex as everyone makes it. I think it's when you kind of have this, like for me, I'm going to be 49 in a couple of weeks. And it's not old, but it's old enough. Where if I train at almost 49, at 48, with a 22-year-old expectation, I'm going to be disappointed every time. Because I'm living in the past. I'm living on things that I used to be able to do and trying to recreate that. But if I can get out, put my gear on a beautiful sunny day, get out under some trees, or just breathe and relax and move with some sense of peace, then I'm going to derive a lot more out of my karate, and I'm going to enjoy it. The problem is when, it's that comparison thing. We all want to look a certain way and feel a certain way. I think that if we stop comparing ourselves to others, and I'm terrible at it, man. There's so many people. A good example is Michael Hagan, who's a friend of ours who does the Apex Karate channel. And, for me, I look at his kata and I never want to do a kata again. I'm not putting a kata up there for other people to judge and rip apart. But also the thing is that, he's coming from a kind of a tournament mentality. Well, that's probably not putting away, but I mean, there's a tournament, he's a very successful tournament competitor, and he trains people and coaches people. But I look at what he does, and then he goes off and does some beautiful kobudo, and I'm just going, man, I'm not swinging a ball ever again. Training with Sensei Miguel, it's the same thing. The way he does sai, he does kobudo like no one I've ever seen. Like watching his iku technique, his sai, and all these things, I'm going, I'm never doing a sai. I'm never teaching sai again. But the thing is like, when we get to, as you said, back to not making it so difficult, getting out of the idea that we have to constantly compare ourselves to others, that's where the enjoyment is. Man, I went to a memorial service for a gentleman called, for a sensei called Sensei Jon Gent. He started karate, I believe, sometime in the 60s. He passed away in December. He was in his 80s when he passed away. He only ever, in terms of formal grade, reached Shodan. He was a Shodan for longer than I've been alive. A Shodan and Gojuru, Shodan and Gojukai. A few weeks before he passed away, at 82, he was in the dojo training. He was interred in his gi at his request. Now, in terms of mastery, in terms of people that I want to emulate, I would like to, when I shuffle off, I'd like people to say, if it's in the evening, I want people to say, well, he was in the dojo in the afternoon. And if it's in the morning, man, I'm saying, well, he was in the dojo last night. You know what I mean? And that for me is a benchmark. But as long as I'm getting something out of it, like when you have students, I think, especially when you have yudancha, you grade people to shodan, especially, there's that period where people drop off. And I think it's quite easy to get bitter about that. But my hope is that, particularly with kids, is they've gained enough from the experience of doing karate that it's going to have greater application in their lives outside of fighting. That they feel that something more about themselves, and they're more aware of what they're actually capable of in terms of pushing past limitations. And like when you were talking before, I was thinking it is about making it as uncomplex as possible, keeping it simple, and just going back to the basics.
Yeah, and what you were saying before about, I'm not 22 anymore, I'm 48, or I'm almost 49, right? And so that's around 26 years of difference. But what you're able to do now is not what you were able to do at 22, because you've got that 26 years of experience on that 22-year-old, right? That 22-year-old could probably jump around and all that. But I'm thinking back to when I was 22, and Jesus Christmas alive, I wouldn't want to be that person again, because you're not the same person that you were. And that's, I think, the appealing thing about karate is, I've seen people look back at their times of being able to do stuff like that and constantly trying to recapture it, and thinking that was the only thing, where they're not progressing in terms of being like, you're not there anymore. Karate is bigger than that time of in your life.
Yeah.
You won't be that person again. You can't keep trying to make people that person. Be the person you are now. Do the training you can do now. Because in 26 more years, you aren't going to be the same person now that you were going to be then.
And let's be honest, man. I mean, the 48-year-old me would have hated the 20-year-old me. He would have just seen him as a cocky, arrogant, know-it-all kid who needed a good slap around the back of the head. And I think that it's funny because, the trade-off is that I can't do as much physically as I did then, in terms of, like spinning hook kicks and all the rest of those kind of cool things. But now as a practitioner, I think my understanding of how I like to practice karate is different, but it's also better. My understanding of karate is a lot better, I think, for me. I would love to be able to go back and it's that whole thing of I'd love to go back if I had my time to do again, but we don't. But the thing is that we have to also be gentle with ourselves. We get to a certain point. A lot of practitioners get to a certain point. I mean, get to that age where they go, it's just about injuries. We get together and go, oh man, like you don't have a good knee. You don't have a good knee and a bad knee. You have a bad knee and a really bad knee. And the thing is that that's just kind of how we play. So, but, back to the style thing, then what am I doing in my style? What am I doing in my practice? If, like, I've been to a dojo where you've got guys in their 40s and 50s who have come to karate later in life. They didn't start as children, and the bar for their gradings is the same as the 10-year-old super flexible, super fit kids. So let's start with 300 head high Jordan Moshigiri. And you're sort of going, yeah,
that's not going to work.
Yeah, man, that's, like for me, bro, it's like that Willie Nelson song, for all the, for all the girls I've loved before. For me, it's all the kicks I don't do no more. There's so many techniques for all the kicks I don't do no more. There's so many things. There are things I wish I could still do, man. But, that's purely my ego speaking. But also, there were so many things I was going, why did I waste my time with that? I had to waste my time with it to realize that wasn't going to work for me, and had to kind of go through. I mean, look, man, Karate Kid. For me, Karate Kid, when it first came out, it was just like, wow. Because I was a skinny brown kid who was not great academically. It was like someone was talking to me. But you've got to go through that. You've got to go through that awkward stage to try and figure out who you are. And I think the same thing with martial arts. And too many people try to bypass that. And also, man, too many people look for answers. I mean, going back to Karate Kid, bro.
Here we go.
Daniel gets to a certain point where he starts going, like learning all these sort of secret techniques, where he has to look inward, right? He has to try and discover his inner Invisible Sensei.
There you go.
Shameless plug.
They're all over this episode. It's fine.
But I think the thing is that you kind of hit on something really interesting, in that style is an expression of the individual. That, I mean, I've seen senior sensei who didn't once. People have formed these huge organizations around their particular take on how they will do bunkai.
Right.
These guys didn't want organizations. These guys are kind of mystified that people have made these huge international organizations around them. They're going, I just want to practice karate.
Yeah, and it goes into a kind of misunderstanding of part of that, and this could be a completely separate podcast in terms of like the history of how this stuff had gone. I mean, we could do like A&E biography on how organizations in some ways hurt karate more than helped it. But in terms of trying to maintain some semblance of continuity between what's being taught from a particular sensei and how a dojo in New Zealand or America or India or the UK is doing it, and like especially at a certain time when you did not have video, you didn't have audio, you had a letter and like some photos and maybe a grainy 36 millimeter camera, right? I think what helped people is saying, we are part of this thing. We are these people. We are Nahate. We are Goju. We are Ryukyu Kempo. We are whatever, right? I think to a certain degree that's helpful. So it's to say, it's just instead of just saying we are karate, I guess in a marketing perspective as well, it's helpful to distinguish yourself. But I think now being more decentralized is probably better, because you're more distinct and you aren't the fifth, I don't know, Shoryuu guy in the town, right? Or you do other different things and you just kind of let your training speak for itself, because ultimately the style isn't going to be able to do that. And I think that's one of the ultimate problems, where we always say, I've seen this happen too much, where they put the sensei's name and the style out there and they think that it's going to shut everybody up or make everybody impressed, and it won't, and it doesn't, and it's fallen on its face flat. And I've been a bad, I don't know, say victim of that, but somebody who's guilty of that.
Yeah. So
I guess my point there is just having style is fine. It's what we all have, but emphasizing it, that will gradually go away, like you were saying before. So,
Well, it also comes down to, having. I mean, this. I'll give an example too. Also, to me, I look at karate, for me personally, as a person who has a very specific indigeneity. I'm indigenous. I'm Māori and I'm Samoan and I'm from New Zealand, and from the Pacific. And I grew up. We have our own language, our culture, our rituals, and all those sort of things. So, for me, when I see karate, I always look at it from the perspective, for me, that I'm learning something which I'm not culturally a part of, and that there's a certain sense of like I will never. It's not that whole I will never understand karate because I'm not Okinawan or I'm not Japanese or whatever.
Ooh,
but
that's a different conversation.
There is a certain level of respect that I have for it because it is to use that term, an intangible cultural asset and a tangible cultural treasure of the indigenous Okinawan people. I mean, obviously, there's been contributing factors to the development of karate from China and from all the other sort of tributaries, for want of a better word, that have influenced Ryukyu Kingdom and Okinawan karate and so on and so forth. But for me, I just sort of think that I try to do karate not like an Okinawan. I try to do it with the idea that I want to do it in a respectful manner. I'm not saying that as a stylist we need to let go of our roots. I think that's really important. But I think that, like you said, our karate should speak for itself. Like for me, I'm always amazed when people walk up to you, you're at something, or some kind of karate event or something, and people start off with, "Oh, what grade are you?" Like for me, I find that quite an intrusive question. As you know, I am a Hanchi Shihan Sifu, 38th Dan.
38th Dan. There we go.
38th Dan. I'm
38 caliber.
Yeah, man, 38 caliber. Thank you. Not a lot of people get that. But seriously, I think that show me what you do. Don't tell me who you are. I was talking about that gentleman who passed away, and we were having the after function. Now this interesting thing, the memorial service was comprised of different dojo doing, instead of doing memorials, they get up and do a kata as an acknowledgement of this particular. It was really amazing.
That is the first I've heard of something like that.
Yeah, and my students got up and we did a bo kata and I did an iku kata. Then another dojo got up and they did seinchin, and some people did some of his favorite kata. It was really lovely. It was a really, really wonderful feeling. Afterwards, we went to this function. I was sitting there talking to probably one of the most senior karate practitioners in New Zealand. And you get an opportunity to sit and listen to the conversation with gentlemen like that. You shut your mouth and you listen. So these senior practitioners were just having this conversation, but there was this one guy who kept interspersing with, "Well, I used to be an uchirishi, and when I teach my students, they always say they're learning so much more out of me." I'm going, "Hey man, pull your head out of your ass and realize that you're in the presence of history and tradition." And that's what I like about, for me with Okinawa, you get an opportunity to, for me as I guess from the indigenous perspective, to touch the ground where it all started. That's for me what feeds me. And language and culture is something which I love. But at the same time, I don't own karate. I just practice it. What's going to be another bane to the existence of karate is people people getting online, talking about the sort of depth of the river of karate knowledge that's coming at us now.
Right.
There's certain practitioners who'll get online and go, "That's my bunkai. I come up with that. You have plagiarized my material." I'm going, "Holy shit, man. I can't do karate like you. You can't do karate like me. My chieftainship is my chieftainship. Your chieftainship is your chieftainship. You being a tiger doesn't take away from me being a tiger, but I can choose to act like a chicken because you're a tiger." You know what I mean?
Well, and you can't copyright.
Yeah.
You can't copyright technique. Come on. Come on. I've
heard. I can, and I will.
How? It's not. It's like trying to copyright fish. You can't copyright fish.
Well, look, I've noticed that you've been doing, every time you do a kingiri and a maigiri and that, I am getting a buck. Okay? You know, you need to,
We gotta
like you
kick
say,
out.
you got to pay respect, bro. You got to send that money across. I haven't seen much.
All right. Well, I mean, I like how you said we don't own karate. We practice it. So no one owns karate, but we own our own karate.
Mm.
And we don't own the styles necessarily we practice, right? But we own what we practice.
We own our practice.
Yeah, and we don't own it. And I think this is the thing people need to realize with style. We can't back up to it. It is not a backing. It is a kind of overhang, if that makes sense. That it's going to be above us, and it's going to be the thing, the legacy from above. But ultimately on the ground, it's on us. It's not. We're building on foundations that the people have left, but we can't really see it because it's the foundation. Weird metaphors. I don't really like them. But
I mean, that's cool. I mean, I just sort of think that once we get past the idea of, it's exactly what you said. It's not as difficult as everyone makes out, but it's also about how we treat other people. I mean, for me, a big part of what I like in a practitioner in a dojo is, there's a saying: if you want to see the quality of a person, watch how they treat someone who is unimportant to them. And so when someone comes to a dojo, like for me, I say everyone has a story, everyone has integrity. Treat people as, we all know what it's like to go to a place and not feel welcome. I mean, for me, when people come to our dojo, even if they're coming to watch, if we have the ability, and I go grab that person a coffee and a seat, tell them to relax. If they have any questions, just to holler, because the idea is, for me, I really believe that karate should make better people, or make people better. It's not something which should separate us. It's something which should, we share a passion for something. Like, I'll give an example, man. I'm a complete nerd. I love comics. I love anime. I'm a Star Wars and a Star Trek. Some people will find that really different. I love sci-fi, heroic fantasy. Man, I read comics. I love cartoons. I love it. Now,
if you're interested in Star Wars and Star Trek, and you also are an anime fan, can I interest you in this thing called Mobile Suit Gundam?
Indeed, so.
So I've actually been waiting to say that to somebody. All right. So
well, I mean, but the thing here's an example, man. So I was working in Papua New Guinea for a few years, and I was working with these gentlemen who were all. I was doing some hand-to-hand stuff, and I was working with all these gentlemen that were all very seasoned soldiers, and we were working at this place called Goldie Barracks, and we're out doing sort of some jungle maneuvers, doing this and that, and we were coming back after 4 or 5 days in the jungle doing this particular exercise, and we're in this kind of troop carrier thing, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking out the window, and I'm so tired, so unaccustomed to the heat. I'm feeling, I wasn't in any way, shape, or form feeling very tough or cool. And I just sat there and I started humming. I started going. Da, 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 da.
Now, gotta cut it there, otherwise Disney's coming after us.
I'm looking at the windows. Doing this, and then what happens is these guys, these toughened veteran soldiers from Papua New Guinea, from the Bougainville crisis, start going da, 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 and we connected over bloody Star Wars, man. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what karate should be. I think kobudo, karate, martial arts should be. I mean, there's some wonderful practitioners out there that just want to enjoy and get a buzz. I want to be around people that are passionate and positive. Don't take themselves too seriously, but take what they do very seriously. That's how you grow. And, life is too short, man. Life is too short to walk. I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my karate. I just know that I like practicing it. I want to, the day I die, bro, I want to be walking towards the thing that I'm supposed to do, not being frightened to walk towards it, so walking in another direction. And for some reason, karate is part and parcel of that. So I don't want to spend my time hanging out with people who are total dicks. I want to train with men and women and practitioners and people who love what they do, but it's not who they are. So many people define themselves as, being a sensei or being senior to someone. I'm like, man, I mean, like yourself, I've met people who I deem to be by far and away my senior, and I go, man, they're just cool guys. They're cool men and women. They're cool people who I want to hang out with. Like for me, when I get to come to Okinawa, man, I'm hoping that, man, I'm going to get across. Hopefully, we'll meet in Naha, go and have a feed somewhere.
Well,
you know what I mean?
And that's
and have a great conversation, and then do some training.
Yeah. Oh, and then like that's the thing where it's like, what is it? The best times I have ever had training had nothing to do with style. Had nothing to do with that. Had everything to do like it's when you have a common language with someone, but you don't necessarily like. For example, I had worked with a guy who did Tang Soo Do or had done like competition stuff, and apparently had done this like really really seriously when he was a kid, but like he is a bit younger than me, but we did different quote unquote styles, and we were just chatting about how we did stances and stuff, and we were working in like a bank, and just jiving about this stuff. And, we were able to develop a relationship, and he was younger than me, and he was like inexperienced in terms of like talking to people. So he had what we call the Delco slot, like the Delco accent. So he's talking a lot like this up into, really the high class customers. And so I had to help him with his inflection, not his accent, but just his inflection, by handing him a piece of classical literature and just like, don't worry about understanding any of this stuff. Just articulate the words to yourself in a mirror. Right. For 20 minutes a day.
Was that like Ionic Pentameter or something like that?
No, it was God, I forget what it was, like the Iliad or the Odyssey, but it was just more like read something where you're just hitting all the words. Right. So you're like hitting the T's and the D's on stuff harder than you are like, because of where I come from, the accent tends to really the diphthong goes down and up, and everything gets hotter around whatever. So like it sounds, I'm making it sound more Boston than it actually is. Not from Boston, from Philadelphia. I got the Rocky shirt on. So
Rocky. I don't know if you're gonna get to see the video of this, but he is literally, he is literally wearing a Rocky shirt. And respect Rocky.
I might put a little bit of the video up, but we'll see. But all right, we've had a bit of a bang about. Is there anything else you want to say about style before we wrap up?
About style, I think the style is unimportant. I think the practitioner and the teacher is the thing which is most important. Train with people that inspire you, but don't try to own you. A good teacher is someone who shows you where to look, but doesn't tell you what to say, and is able to get out of their own way. Why spend time with people who treat you with disrespect? Don't allow people to tell you the truth of yourselves. It's karate and martial arts, whatever style, whatever culture, whatever place you whatever way in which you practice should be about you, the practitioner. It's about how you are as a son, a father, a husband, a partner, a colleague, a boss, an employee, a cousin, whatever. It's about how you are in relation to other people. That's what real martial arts is about. And a little bit of Steve Jobs, but you got to stay curious, man. You've got to stay curious. You've got to stay inquisitive, and you got to remember, you don't know it all, but you've got to treasure what you do, and realize, like for me, I hope some of these senior sensei who sits in positions of power realize, while they're getting online and begging people for using that's my bunkai, that we are all individual people. I can't do the karate that you do. You can't do the karate that I do. We can only do what it is, what's in front of us, who we are. We can only express that. And the thing is be okay with that. Be okay. Be worthy. Don't look for someone to tell you you're worthy. Just be worthy. Just enjoy what you're doing. And if you're not,
find something to enjoy.
Go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Do something else.
Yeah. Integrate stuff it's funny is that I was just talking to someone who had been pretty hard line in terms of this like style stuff. and now I was like, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm doing yoga now. I'm just like one of the out of left field things I didn't anticipate this person doing. He's like, yeah, just doing it for my health. Yeah, I really like to go where you are. And I'm like, yeah, how's the snow treating you?
Yeah, but that's the thing is, it doesn't matter if you can do something with passion, with clarity, with that feeds you. It doesn't really matter what it is, karate or not. When you look at it from the perspective of we're training with techniques we don't want to use for a fight we never want to have, doing dances in which we're pretending to fight people who are not there. So from a purely common sense perspective, it doesn't make much sense, but I love it. I'll continue doing it. And if you give it a shot, I'm sure you'll love it. But we're different strokes, man.
No, yeah. Definitely.
Live free or die. Live free or die.
We are not. I did not come from that part of the world. I don't come from. I'm not that kind of American. We just get angry. We just get angry and eat Italian food. Cool. So I want to ask, as I ask everybody, what's your up for your training plans this week?
Well, this weekend, it's a long weekend here in New Zealand, so it's what we call Waitangi Day. Waitangi Day is the commemorates the signing of a treaty between the Indigenous Māori people of New Zealand and the English Crown. And we're no longer part of that Crown. So, it's always an interesting time of the year. People have various ideas about it. So we're using this weekend to cut some wood. In terms of training,
that's good training right there.
Yeah, I'm in terms of training at the moment, I'm working on kata that I don't enjoy doing.
Okay.
And finding a way to enjoy them. I've had some really wonderful input from some great people, actually. And
do any of them involve kama?
Oh, I love kama. I love kama. But
we have a long-standing hate of kama on this podcast. So
really, oh man, look. But I can say that I've hit myself with most cool weapons. I do yado, and I just about cut my ear off because showing off for a girl. So that's another podcast altogether. But yeah, man. Look, the thing is that to turn up and just do it to create a good ritual for training, and just sometimes, man, it's not right. I'm going to do a 20-minute run. I'm going to do stretches. I'm going to do hojo, and I'm going to practice this kata. Sometimes, man, just put a t-shirt on and your gi pants and go and hit a makiwara and just see what happens. That's what I'm working on.
Definitely. Cool. Yeah, I had a really good training week 2 weeks ago. This week has not been so great, so I'm just trying to get into a more decent rhythm with my training. I've been able to hit the bag with a lot more effectiveness than I have in the past. I think I sent you and a couple other people a video of me accidentally destroying a bag.
I was impressed. Was I frightened? Yet there was a little bit of fear in there, but there was a little bit of grudging admiration, but there was a lot of jealousy. I mean, if you're going to destroy a bag, do it that way.
What is this? Unleashing a lot of water that shouldn't have been unleashed.
No, man. I mean, the thing is like, what people don't know about Jonathan's technique is that, Dragon Ball Z, man. Dragon Ball Z. What I'm going to say, I'm going to leave it there. Hadouken. That's all I'm going to say.
We've either gotten about 500 new subscribers or we've lost everybody from that point.
Yeah. Well, it is funny when people, but but look, man, one thing I do want to say, if I may, before we finish, is Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh man, no, and you, there are a number of podcasts that I listen to. There's 5. And one of the ones that I kind of circle, especially I'm an early morning trainer. I love training early, and so having you kind of along and having you in the earpods while I'm training, man, has been really good and really motivational. So please continue to keep doing the podcast, bro, and I hope you can find it in your schedule to get on mine.
Most definitely.
So honored to have you.
And I think we will try to do like the Gods of Karate podcasting stream at some point.
Man.
Yeah.
So let's. Can I be Thanos? Can I be Thanos?
Sure.
I'm a Thanos.
You can snap. There we go, and then we can snap half the other podcasts out of existence.
Yeah.
So we can create scarcity,
and so
people will drive it to the other podcasts.
I've got a glove, and I'm gonna get some gems for it. But thank you, man, and keep doing it. I'm looking. Hopefully, we can do this a lot more. I'm looking forward to catching up with next year training, man. Thank you so much. Hey guys, keep listening to this wonderful podcast. Support our brother. And
everybody get over to Invisible Sensei Podcast. That's actually really it's if you want a real podcast that's good to listen to while you're training and is actually really helpful and motivational, he's got the podcast for that.
Yeah. So, well, but do I? Thanks for that, bro. But I think let's just support each other. I'm keen to do more of these because I have really, really enjoyed this. In fact, I do want to go and get my gear on now that we've had this conversation.
Indeed. I was out the ocean this morning and it was like, I want to go train. but the hangover.
Let us not look at it as a hangover. Let us look at it as an opportunity for growth.
Yes, exactly. It's like, this is what I want to do. Not be hungover. I want to be able to train until we start drinking again. All right. Well, Tua, thank you so much for being on, and everybody else, keep on training.